Here at the Fort Worth ISD football field, I'm chasing. Along with me is Adrian Conway. Mike Arsenault will join us down on the field in a bit, and it is under the lights. Adrian, it is nice and toasty outside, a nice summer night as we get ready for track and field.
Yeah, you can't beat it here, Chase. This is Friday Night Lights at its best, CrossFit style. We got a 1,600-meter run. Then at the 12-minute mark, there will be a full reset, and we will have 2 heats of a 50-yard sprint with a bag carry, and they're going to repeat that down the length of the football field.
We got 2 heats tonight for the individual women, which will take the field first. 20 athletes in each heat. As you can see, the downtown lights of Fort Worth, Texas, descending upon the field here. Starting with that 1,600-meter run. At the 12-minute mark of that running clock, as you said, Adrian, we will get to that sandbag sprint on the football field. And a lot of things up for grabs here as we're looking to see who will have the best of both worlds when it comes to this test of fitness.
Sandbag.
And heat number 1 of 2 is off for the individual women. And we've had a long day so far today, Adrian. We started the morning off with that monster chipper with GHD sit-ups, deadlifts, skier, cows, rope climbs, and then they just finished a fast and furious firestorm finish on the echo bike and burpees. How are these athletes feeling coming into this final event tonight?
My goodness, you know, you nailed it when you talk about the volume of work that has already been amassed throughout this. These athletes are tired, but they're prepared for it, Chase. They understand what is going to be asked of them when they show up at the CrossFit Games. The test to be the fittest on earth should be thorough, and it should certainly be a challenge, and they're getting every ounce of that as we begin this 1,600-meter run for time. We've already tested 2 polarizing differently energy systems, which means we just sprinted all out for 3 minutes and below in the last test, and then that first one was upwards of 20 minutes in duration. Today, back-to-back, they're going to get a taste of both one more time.
In the lead, you have Abby Dommett, who has a background in gymnastics, cheerleading, and track. She went to the University of Texas in San Antonio, so she is used to this Texas heat. Tonight, you have Brooke Wells and Alexis Raptis as we're finishing our first lap of 4 in this 1,600-meter race.
Coming in at an average of 107, that lead pack there as they cross that initial line. That's moving. There's a lot of speed and intensity there, Chase, especially considering where their posterior had already been challenged earlier in today. We can understand that their legs are going to certainly start to feel a bit heavy coming on the backside of this 800 meters. So for me, as a coach and athlete in the space, what I'm considering is, have they come out too fast? Pretending to be flash, perhaps. And will that create a sensation of them falling flat with their pace in the finish? So something to beware of is, are they getting sucked into the moment of the Friday Night Lights and the energy of their competitors, or have they nailed the pacing just right to start this thing?
Brooke Wells now moving ahead of Abby Dommett. Alexis Raptis sitting in 3rd. Sahir Kaya in 4th. As Brooke Wells has a gymnastics background as well, but for her it's track and field, right? Her and her twin sister Sydney, track stars going in through high school, making their way through college. So Brooke Wells is used to this arena when it comes to maybe not the distance per se, but this is familiar territory.
Yeah, and what I like to create an advantage for Brooke here is that she's done well in shorter but more metabolic derived speed tests. So we look back at the 500-meter run that we've done in the past. We look at these repetitive 400-meter intervals that we may see throughout a mixed modal test. Maybe there's a gymnastics movement, a weightlifting movement, but we come around and circulate at 400 meters at a time. Brooke has fared relatively well there versus some of the longer runs, the 35-minute runs, the 5K all at once. So this energy system, I think, allows her to shine her strengths just a touch more than some of the longer style runs that we've seen tested in the past.
2 laps down, 2 to go. Alexis Raptis makes a pass on Brooke Wells. About halfway through the 3rd lap of the 400-meter, as Alexis Raptis has just made a pass on Brooke Wells and extending her lead as we're coming into the 2nd turn of the 3rd lap.
And you even noticed here, Alexis Raptis quickening the pace of her upper body. Watch her shoulders. She's driving very aggressively through her shoulders. Her elbows are staying relatively close to her body, and that pace is quickened through the entrance into this third lap, the back half of this 1,600-meter race. And that is everything when you see the way that she nailed the pace to start. Started fast enough, Chase, to be in contention, but not too fast for her to bring up the speed on the back half.
Oh no, welcome those that are joining us on ESPN2, and there's a reason. Alexis Raptis, we just saw her make a pass on Brooke Wells. Brooke Wells just behind her, who was leading at the halfway point, and I was thinking Alexis Raptis is really dropping the hammer on this third lap of 4, and she thought it was the 4th lap.
Bro, Chase, I kid you not. I'm speechless right now what we just saw. I was in the same mindset as you. I was like, she is literally dropping her. I've never seen a CrossFit athlete come around with 800 meters left in a 1,600-meter race at this type of velocity. However, she was mistaken. She had one full 400 meters left to go in the race. And now Brooke Wells has a huge opportunity to make a move.
Alexis Raptis still holding a small lead against Brooke Wells, but when you see something as a competitor trying to chase someone down, what fuel does that give you to try to make a pass here on this last lap?
Oh, it's tremendous fuel, and let me tell you, there was just a complete reverse in psychology and emotion between these two athletes. Alexis Raptis hastening her speed, thinking she only had one lap left, and then her running away from Brooke Wells. Brooke Wells thinking, wow, how is this girl going to be possible at doing this? And now Alexis has to rebound, bro, and she's got to find a way to fight through the finish because Brooke is there nipping her heels.
The crowd here at Farrington Field rises to their feet as Alexis Raptis and Brooke Wells are in a foot race in the last 100 meters of this 1,600-meter sprint. And can Alexis Raptis hold off Brooke Wells after dropping on the third lap?
Wow. What a finish by both those ladies.
Abby Dommett comes in third. Sahir Kaya. Jacqueline Dahlstrom crosses the finish line. And these are 1,600-meter times that are low 5s. Georgia Pryor, Chloe Govan-David, Sung-Young Choi. As we are approaching the 6-minute mark. Now this is not the only event we have. This is a back-to-back event as Emma McQuaid, Neely, Cato, and here comes the rest of the pack. Shelby Neal working her way. Dawan Jung and Kyra Milligan. And this is a running clock event. So the athletes started with a 1,600-meter run. As you see Danny Spiegel making her way last 50 meters before she crosses the finish line. At the 12-minute mark, we are going to move to the field sprint.
Yeah, and that's a whole different thing, right? We watched Danny Spiegel finish this race here at the end of her pack that involved, of course, 20 athletes. They understand there's going to be another 20 athletes that take the field after them. So Danny had to finish that portion of the test with some intensity, but she also had to keep in mind what was to come. And now look at this finish, this head-to-head race by Alexis Raptis and Brooke Wells. Alexis Raptis had to renew her energy somehow and fight for another rep after being under the impression she only had 400 meters left, a full lap behind, and Brooke Wells was able to close the gap. And look at that. Wow.
I'm looking at the chip times, unofficial until everything becomes official, Adrian, but it looks like Alexis Raptis might have held on by 0.2 of a second. And to be able to think you were done and to have to restart is near impossible. And the fact that Alexis Raptis was able to do that, now are you a little bit rattled coming off something like that?
Yes, you're 100% rattled, and I'm going to tell you right now, she has got the maturity and the bandwidth mentally to pull it together here, but what did it cost her physically? What did it cost her physically for that point to outlast Brooke Wells? And now she's got to recoup understanding. She's only earned half of her points for this specific event.
Results for heat number 1 on the 1,600-meter run, and there you have it. Alexis Raptis holds off Brooke Wells with a 5:34 1,600-meter run. Brooke Wells is 0.2 behind her, with Abby Dommett in third.
What a night. We got the breeze going through here. Perfect evening for this event. Number 4, track and field. Applicator 9 in 3 minutes.
3 minutes to go until we segue into the next portion of this event.
We are 2 minutes out. 2 minutes out. As we were talking about earlier, for the next portion with a 50-yard sprint, 50-yard back carry, 75-yard sprint, 75 back carry, and then a 100-yard sprint back
The fun's not over. Part 2 is about to be underway for these individual men and women in heat number 1 as we move to the field portion of track and field.
This is the second part, Chase. So we already had that introduction 1,600-meter run for time. This is a hard reset. It's a 50-yard sprint. They're going to pick up a star in the form of a sandbag, and it's going to be 70 pounds. They've got to track that thing back, then 75 out sprint, then with the bag back, and then a 100-yard sprint through the finish.
Your lane assignments in heat number 1. As we have 2 heats of individual women to close out the day of day 2 of competition here at the 2024 CrossFit Games. As we just saw Alexis Raptis hold off Brooke Wells in what you would consider an impossible task after she stopped after the 3rd of 4th laps on the 1,600-meter run. 50 yards down the field. 100 total yards on the field. 70-pound bag. And there you have the Lone Star bag that Rogue Fitness designed just for this event. They'll run down 50 yards, pick up the bag, and drop it. Brooke Wells could not run down Alexis Raptis on the 1,600 meter.
Chase, we talked about this too in our preparation. Hey man, the run without the sandbag matters, but the run that matters most is with the weight, and there's no fumble in the bag. You got to pick that up with a quick transition, sling it on your shoulder, have a clean transition, and be back quickly in order to have a chance on this final 100 coming back through.
75 yards down, and then another carry with the 70-pound Happy Star. They'll drop it at the end zone, and then it will be a 100-yard dash to the finish line for part 2 of track and field. Bags down, turn around, Brooke Wells trying to make up what she lost. And oh my goodness, Georgia Pryor at a lane number 18 drops the bag and the hammer at the same time and takes part 2.
Well played, Georgia. Well played. Think about the way that she was able to unveil that strategy. It was a lot of patience. Stay with the pack, stay with the pack, stay patient. Drop that final bag, turn, and run. Elbows back, knees up. She put on a clinic there. Georgia Pryor coming through on that final straightaway.
Now with this two-parter, the combined performance of the athletes will still be worth a total of 100 points, so they're not being scored separately. You get a place points for the first part, second part, they add those together and then rank the athletes.
Hey guys, on this side. Ready? Kijk Danny.
And here we are. Take a look at this finish here. We had Brooke Wells leading the entire race, and then it was Georgia Pryor at the bottom of your screen. Elbows back, knees up, head in neutral position. She put on a clinic for the final sprint all the way through the finish, and yet the whole entire event up into this final sprint, we weren't even talking about her once. She laid back and waited her turn, and that got her the lead, at least in this particular portion of the test. We'll see the way the scores tabulate to see who exactly took this heat.
Georgia Pryor would have finished, and then Chloe Govan-David at the other side of the field took second in that second part. Georgia Pryor out of the Oceania region will take part two at 1:16.64. Chloe Govan-David 1:17.57, and Brooke Wells just behind her in 1:17.99.
Which Brooke, like we already understand, Chase, the way these scores are going to play out, and that's a great finish for her. 1-3 going across, or 2-3 going across. That's going to fare very